All right, brother. How goes it?
Well, it's great. I'm fresh off the plane, just back from the final open announcement. And you might appreciate this, Pat. We had some old school talent in the building. One Travis Bajent
Oh my
was
goodness, the
there.
arm wrestling dude?
100%, yeah. So
I
his
haven't
son,
heard that name for. He's still just monstrously big.
he hasn't changed a bit. He is a mammoth of a man and just exactly what you would remember. You know what I mean? Just boisterous, gregarious, never met a camera he didn't like. Just a gentleman. It was great.
Did you try to arm wrestle him?
No, come on.
Could you imagine the damage that would occur to every tendon, ligament in your entire body?
Listen, Pat, I wouldn't take that two-handed.
Yeah, no. He's just an absolute savage. Well, good for you.
Yeah.
So, will things calm down a little bit with regards to travel?
With regards to travel, yes. I'll be home for a little bit now, and looking forward to that. It's been a fun 3 weeks, but I am ready to be at my house for more than a couple days at a stretch, and yeah, it'll be good.
Man, on a totally random note, are you into any like binge watch any series on Netflix or anything?
Once in a while, my wife and I are watching Severance right now. So
Oh,
that's
dude.
fun.
Okay,
Yeah.
forget. You know what? All right, we just derailed this entire episode. We derailed this entire episode. Severance is in its second season, I believe. Are you all caught up?
No, I think we're 2 or 3 episodes behind because I've been on the road, so I've missed the
Okay.
Friday releases. So yeah, we're a
Okay.
couple episodes behind. We're halfway through the second
Okay.
season, but a few episodes back.
Okay, so for anybody, I'm not going to give any spoiler alerts to you. Don't worry, any in the audience, I'm not going to give it as well. What's your take so far?
Oh, it's fun. I think, I said this to my wife the other day. I kind of feel like it almost might be this generation's Twin Peaks. I don't know if you're familiar with that show from way
I
back
know
in
the
the
name,
day.
but I didn't watch it.
Yeah, it was an old David Lynch series, and it was really kind of, I don't know, fantastical and like a melodrama, but really surreal. So my take is, I don't know, I think it's really more about betrayal of self more than anything else. You know, in the early days of the series, they talk a lot about explicitly that it is not two people, but as the series goes on, they become more and more referential and trying to convince the audience that they are in fact two people. You have your inside and outside. It's like, no, it is the same entity. And, you have to not forget that. So I think that's a key, from what I can see in the plot, I think that's a key theme, and that's going to have some sort of resolution at some point.
Okay. This might get more comments than any of our fitness topics that we're going to talk about. But
We're now a pop culture podcast.
as we record this, it's March 14th. So whatever's the most recent episode, that's where my wife and I are caught up to. And we think that we're out, that we're not going to watch it anymore.
Really?
Dude, I don't know. I mean, I like to consider myself,
Okay.
maybe not the sharpest tool in the shed, but modestly above average.
Sure.
Most of the time, the episodes finish, and I say to myself, "What the hell was that about? What was going on there? Why am I so lost? To the point where I'm like, have to be a detective following some breadcrumb trail. I just don't. I think I'm out. I think I'm out. I think I'm out of it. I think I'm done with
Let me
Severance.
see if I can bring you back, because this is, again, the analog with Twin Peaks is, and this is very half-baked, so take it for what it is. But that whole series, there is no resolution, really. They never really finished it. I mean, they kind of did. They followed up with a movie, but, and then they had a series, I think 3 or 4 years ago after like a 20-year hiatus. But the point is that I think you can enjoy things that don't have to have plot-based resolution. It's a little trickier because I think that's what we all come to expect from most things that we either read or see on TV or whatever. But it's like, I don't know, I think there's a certain enjoyment in just the premise. There's a certain enjoyment in the imagery. I mean, it's all filmed so interestingly. The characters are fun.
It's
You know what I
filmed
mean?
very creatively. Like
And so-
that's true.
For me, I'm like, man, that's enough. I don't. Maybe I never get to a point where you quote unquote understand it, but it's a fun ride nonetheless.
Oh, I think I'm going to pause for a bit. You know what's way easier to understand for a Neanderthal like myself, and it comes out once a year, and I gobble it up like crazy. is on Netflix. It's about F1 racing, Drive to
Oh yeah,
Survive.
yeah. I've heard it's a great series. Haven't
I've
seen
never
it.
I've never seen an F1 race in my entire life. I have literally no interest in racing. I don't know what it is, but I watched the first episode like a few years ago, or 4 years
Mm.
ago. Absolutely adored it for some crazy. I don't watch any F1 races during the year, but when
Yeah.
that season comes out, I'm like, oh, here we go, and it's out right now. So I'm very happily diving into that. So that's
All
my
right.
guilty pleasure. But maybe we can get a Severance. Oh my goodness. Anyway, all right. So let's dive into some fitness stuff here for a second. Thanks for bearing with us so far, everybody. As always, we appreciate you. We appreciate you supporting the program here. If you'd like to continue to do that, go to variednotrandom.com. Check out all the different cycles that we offer. We've got on-ramp programs for bodyweight, dumbbell, barbell. We just had Chris Rollins on recently talking about the new jump rope foundations course that has been wildly popular, and people are loving that episode, by the way. I'm hearing a lot of people in Linchpin say that's like their favorite VNR that they've heard so far, which that was
It was
really
a cool interview.
Yeah,
It was,
I mean,
yeah,
it was
really,
enjoyable.
really fun. Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of get your first, strict pull up, muscle up stuff, dip stuff, handstand walk, check that out. And then of course there's your friend and mine, barbell capacity programs. And then, hey, if you're a gym owner, any kind of fitness facility, we don't care what you do there. If you need to take care of all the back end stuff as tracking the results of your members, gym management and billing, btwb has you covered with an all-in-one solution. So just go to btwb.com and check that out. Okay, here's the question that was posted, and it's from Lewis O. It says, some buddies of mine at my affiliate think that increasing the loads of their workouts is better for their overall fitness. Is this really true? For example, instead of using the traditional 50-pound dumbbells, they'll ramp it up to a pair of 60s or 70s. Same for barbell, kettlebell, med ball, you name it. According to the power equation, your performance needs to be very close to the regular weight that you can produce the same or more amount of power, thus intensity. I've been wondering about this lately. Thank you. Now I should say, instead of using the traditional 50-pound dumbbell, they'll ramp it up to 60 or 70. So maybe he's talking about with like a power snatch, because a pair of 70-pound dumbbell thrusters would be pretty robust.
Oh man, yeah, absolutely. That's a pretty significant jump. I know we've talked about dumbbells and just how, it may seem like it's just linear. Well, you just split the difference of the barbell weight and off you go. But that's often not the case as you get closer to that 1 rep max. But generally speaking, yeah, it is interesting. My mind immediately jumps to, like the worship of strength. And I know strength as an attribute is obviously very handy. And
sure. It makes the list regularly.
Yeah. And important. I mean, critically so. However, for whatever reason, it seems to be a lot of people's like pet attribute that they put way more, pun intended, weight on than maybe they should, to the point that it almost becomes like the most important characteristic, sometimes at the detriment of some of the others. So to me, it's really interesting to watch that happen. And it's almost like this predictable pattern that happens in somebody's CrossFit journey. Like they get introduced to this stuff, they get humbled. And then they're like, wow, I'm not as fit as I thought I was. And they start going through the motions. And they get to a point where maybe they either had enough strength developed prior to CrossFit that they're kind of on the strong end for a CrossFitter, or through regular training, they get to that kind of higher end of strength. And now they convince themselves that the way to make things, quote, hard and therefore drive progress is to just keep beefing up the weights. And they refuse to look at some of these other elements that can really push your well-roundedness instead of just the loading. So we'll start there. I think that's kind of my opening assessment.
Yeah, man, I got so many little strands in the duder's head. I'm trying not to get lost at. I think if I was talking to Lewis, I would say you're on the right track with some of the stuff that you said near the end of your question. Not that you need to like quote unquote worry about the power calculation, but it sounds like Lewis is thinking about, well, these things they just might slow you down, and then you're not actually producing the same output. So Lewis, I think you're onto a very nice train of thought there that maybe we can talk about. I think the wording of your question is really critical, because in that it says, that the belief is that increasing the loads of the workouts is better for their, here it is, overall fitness. And I think that's really important because it's the whole framing of the conversation and the what's your goal. So if your goal is actually to be, as CrossFit would define it, truly well-rounded, truly good at anything that can come out of the hopper, short, medium, long, body weight, lightweight, moderate weight, heavyweight, high interference, low interference, then just simply turning the knob up and saying, hey, what's the workout today? Cool, I'm going to bump it up 20%. Hey, what's the workout today? Cool. That's not going to actually get you this overall increased level of GPP. And as somebody who programs regularly, let me say, oh, if it were only that easy, that would be just a wonderful, simple solution. Oh, what do I have to do to make everybody fitter? We're just going to bump all the loads up. Done. Boom. Like, that would be so glorious. But sadly, so I'll wrap it up here and then continue on a bit. But I'll say, Lewis, I think you're right. It has been my personal experience that not only is increasing the loading all the time not going to get most people fitter in the true definition of the word. This is where I think the confusion would be if somebody actually said, hey, I want to get stronger. Should I go heavier every day? I would say no to that also. And that's where I think the confusion might also lie, because variance is a wonderful thing, even when looking to get stronger. And I'll build my case for that in a second if we get there.
Yeah, I'll take a different angle and say, okay, if you're looking at a different attribute, let's say it's, or maybe even a more specific PR development. Let's talk about somebody's mile time as kind of an analog. If somebody's looking to run a faster mile,
you're stealing. I wrote this down. You're stealing my damn example. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm curious if we get to the same end state. So, all right. So if you're going to run a mile and you're like, okay, I need to be able to improve my mile time. Once you get to the point that you can run a mile comfortably and produce a hard effort at it, it doesn't really logically follow that the best way to get a faster mile is to now be able to run 5 miles or 10 miles without stopping. That may be helpful to some, again, kind of general aspect of fitness, but as far as my mile time is concerned, it's not really going to have an impact because the skills are now different. The physical attributes required for that super long distance versus that dedicated mile, they're fundamentally a little bit different. And I think the same thing can start to happen if you're bumping up the weights in every single workout. People want to believe it's this linear thing where, well, if I can handle the 70-pound dumbbells, therefore I can always handle the 50s easier. It's like, well, to a point that's true. You know it's not going to be a problem because obviously you can handle 70 pounds, but that doesn't guarantee that in the middle of a big chipper with 50-pound dumbbells that strength is always going to be available to you. That's not necessarily the case. So as much as people want that to be true, oftentimes the case is like, am I strong enough? And then I have this well-developed kind of balance of other attributes that can all come together. That's the important thing. And it's easy to miss when you start getting focused on just the weights.
Yeah, I like the running example. I had a slightly different one, which maybe I'll circle too. But, getting back to even like I said, you might think, okay, well, I want to get stronger, so I'm going to just lift heavy all the time. Okay. I mean, 300-page books have been written as to how to get strong. So please, please, audience at home, realize I'm not encapsulating everything that's involved with how to get strong in these next 4 sentences. But
although, hey man, I'll push back. I think you can for the average person. When we're talking about like specialized, I got to be a freak show with my strength. Okay. Yeah. But like the average person getting stronger, it ain't complicated.
No.
You can write a 300-page book, but it doesn't have to be.
And I would put it into a few simple buckets that if you're always just going heavier, you're not hitting all 3 of these buckets, which I believe drive athletic performance and drive strength gains forward. The number one is the classic. To get strong, we're gonna touch maximal loads. Our 7x1, our doubles, our 5x3, things like that, as heavy as I can for this particular set. Maximal load. Let's put that in one bucket. Second bucket to help athletes get strong. Submaximal load to failure. This is something no, I don't want anyone home to do this. I think we've mentioned it a long time ago on the show.
Oh
But an
boy.
example would be something terrible we used to do called the front squat medley.
Oh, I remember
which
this.
would be
There was also a deadlift medley, if I
yes,
remember.
But back in the day, this would say like you had a front squat of, let's say, around 300 pounds. Okay, you would put 185 on the bar, front squat to failure. It would be a very large number of reps. You'd rest till full recovery, like 5 minutes. Put 135 on the bar, go to failure. Rest to full recovery, go to 95. I mean, it was a horrifically potent workout, but also effective. It doesn't have to be that extreme, but I'm saying a second bucket as to how to get strong is you're going to lift a sub-maximal load to failure. Okay, so percentage-based, max reps at this percentage. Another way to get strong is what CrossFit does all the time, and I think people discount, which is sub-maximal loads moved quickly. Think about Fran and things like that. We do tons of that stuff. That's well beyond this feeling the need to always increase the loading. As a matter of fact, you're just slowing the athlete down. You actually want to have a load on the bar that you can, of course, now I know safely, but rip like a buzz saw, while you're hyping or hyperventilating and do it well over and over again. That also produces incredible strength gains, not in isolation, but when mixed with those maximal effort days and these submaximal lows to failure days, like all of those things combined are the wonderful parts of variance that not only make athletes really, really strong, but also fit as well and help out with GPP. So now if I kind of remove a bunch of those and I just go with one of those that's always just kind of heavier and slower, I think you're doing yourself a disservice not only for your overall GPP, but actually also for the strength development of your athletes, because you're not hitting it from all the different angles that I personally have found to be really beneficial.
Yeah, it's interesting. Now, I think if we kind of land back on, okay, we have a couple people that are fired up and they want to just push weights every time they're doing a Metcon workout. I don't know that I would argue that they're going to get weaker for doing that, because you don't really know necessarily what they're doing beyond that. But what I will say with relative certainty is that they are also trying to kind of rest in other areas of whatever workout that they're doing. And I think we've brought this up thematically a million times where, if you have a workout and the weights are the kind of the sore thumb, so to speak, where you can point to everything else and you're like, okay, I can get through that, but that load is just like pretty aggressive and it's going to be a short set before I break it up and I'm kind of managing that the whole time. I can do it, but I got to manage it the whole time. Well, guess what? You're probably taking the heat off a lot of the other elements in that workout. And so what does that do to the effectiveness of that couplet or triplet? Now it's a different thing when you know that you're kind of pulling back on these other things to make way for the energy required to lift this heavier load. And that's something that can happen pretty insidiously. You see it happen quite a bit. People talk about like, okay, well, the 400-meter run aspect of this workout, they don't even really bother thinking about it because it's implied that the pace is going to be mellow so that you can manage the other work. And it's like, well, no, this is not a throwaway. It's in there for a reason. And the reason is that you need to push yourself in that aspect of the workout. And so if it's just kind of a tacit implication that I'm just going to take it easy so I can manage these other elements, it's like, well, you're kind of missing it. And it's like, well, why would you bother putting it in there at that point if that wasn't also required to be like attacked? So yeah, that's kind of where I land with this stuff is like, what else are you throwing away? Maybe not wholesale, but what are you giving away so that you can add those
you're giving away
weights?
you're giving away fitness. I mean,
Sure.
if in the classic definition of the word, and that was kind of my point, is if you're always slowing the athlete down to some degree, what you're probably neglecting because you're going to hold back on that 400-meter run because you know how heavy the barbell is that you're running to. You're going to just do that, and so the run's going to get neglected. Whatever's going to get neglected because, holy cow, that deadlift is a monster. I got the 70-pound dumbbell there. And again, absolutely, you should do that every now and then. My point is if you're doing it all the time, then you're going down that road that you're saying right there. And then you will have neglected these key areas. If getting back to Lewis's statement, will it help your overall fitness Most likely no, because, like Greg Glass used to say this thing, I'm going to butcher it. I mean, my apologies if I do, but he would just say, like, if you're watching somebody, and for example, they're cycling a push press, you know where I'm going with this, and the bar speed's good, hip drive's good, like everything looks good. And, one rep looks the same as the next rep, and all of a sudden the load goes overhead. Instead of re-racking it to go into the next rep, the barbell hits the ground, the athlete bends over the way his hands go on the hip, and you hear them hyperventilating. But the bar speed was still good. Like, what happened? Like, it wasn't a strength failure. It wasn't that you weren't strong enough. You had this conditioning, this stamina, this metabolic breakdown that now all the strength in the world wouldn't save you because you can't process oxygen enough to continue on with the workout. And so if you're neglecting one part because you're always dealing with these heavy loads, again, getting back to overall fitness, I don't think that's going to help your long-term overall fitness if that's truly your goal. As we've said before, if you got a bias and you want to run down a bias and that makes you happy, rock on. I'm not going to tell you that's not okay, but getting back to the question of overall fitness for most people, most circumstances, most of the time, simply selecting a heavier loading, I don't think is going to serve them well.
Yeah, for sure. Yep, exactly. And I think you can extend that logic to just about any approach when you're thinking about other individual aspects of fitness. It's not going to follow that for me to get better at running, I just add more running distance. It's like, what aspect of running are we trying to develop,
Or like, I want to be, I want to be the fastest miler in the world, so I'm going to run with a weight vest every single day. Right. And when I take the weight vest off, I'm going to be a rocket ship. It's like, if that's how it worked, we would only train for races with weight vests, but that's not how it works. I'm going to circle back to another Greg Glassman quote that is potentially offensive to all of exercise science, but I find it so entertaining on a juvenile level that I love it. Where he said this, this rough thing that like an athlete needs an exercise scientist like a deer hunter needs an accordion. And I remember having a conversation with the owner of CrossFit Malibu, Mike Anderson, who there was like an old school CrossFit video where they went down with like, I might get the athletes wrong, I apologize. Kalipa, Matt Chan, maybe Becca Voigt was there, maybe Chris Clever, but they hooked all these athletes up to like measure all the classic exercise science.
They did it at, was it Pepperdine? Was that
Mike was, I believe he graduated from the sports medicine program at Pepperdine.
Okay.
And so they ran all these tests and whatnot. And I had a good conversation with him, and I brought that quote up, the accordion quote. And, because I figured it'd be great for somebody like him. And he laughed. He's like, I get what he's saying. He goes, because a lot of times, the research that's done, you don't like walk into the gym the next day and be like, we're changing everything based upon this paper that just came up. It's largely, things are working, and then they go, why is this working? And then they just prove that it happened to work.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, cool, fair enough. I said, well, can you point to even a single thing that they kind of did find out that was interesting and changed your perspective on something that happens in the gym? And he thought for a second. And Mike, I believe I'm telling this story properly. I hope that I am. Please let me know in the comments if not. He said, well, at baseball games, before baseball players are going to go out and swing, they like put the weight on the end of the bat, and they swing the heavy bats for a bit, thought being that when you kick the weight off, the bat's going to feel faster, you're going to have better bat speed, you're going to crush it. He's like, however, we actually found the opposite, that putting that weight on the bat, it got your body used to going slower and not faster because the weight was heavier. And then when you got out there, it didn't do what you hoped that it would do because you had slowed the athlete down. He's like, as odd as it is, you'd probably want to give them a lighter bat if that existed, so they'd be going fast, fast, fast. And then they walk out there primed and ready to go fast. So I guess getting back to the world of just, we're trying to be well-rounded, we're trying to go short, medium, long, the whole 9 yards, that if you're always loading the athlete down to some degree, you're also slowing them down. And when a burner of a workout comes up, that athlete might not be capable of the performance that you thought that they would be, even though the weight's lighter than what they're used to training with and all these other factors, because it's just not as simple as go heavier, get stronger, and then that raises all ships. It's just not quite that simple.
Yeah, it's fun to to revisit some of those things.
Little memory
some of those
lane right
ideas.
there, huh?
Yeah. And that's something I completely agree with, is that, people, I'll rant a little bit more broadly than just being too heavy in a workout all the time. But, I think it's hubris that people generally want to believe that we live in this modern age where we have the answers to all these questions. And it's like, well, to some degree, yes, but we have to recognize that most of the time, exactly what you said, it's a secondary process. Somebody goes out on a limb and tries something and is brave enough to say, you know what, I don't think this conventional thinking is actually complete, and we need to push the boundaries a little bit. And they do that and often get called like a heretic for it. It's like, how could you possibly deadlift after running a 5K?
How dare you?
Like we know, quote unquote, that this is just never going to work out, and that athletes can't display capacity at both ends of that spectrum. Okay, but then somebody does it, and it turns out that lots of athletes can and have developed both ends of that spectrum and can display a pretty remarkable capacity in that kind of range. Oh, now the research comes out and updates itself because they study that thing and that phenomena. So it's a secondary process, and people want to believe that it can be just this predictive process that's ahead of what people have already done, and most of the time it is not. So it's easy to kind of forget that, and to kind of fall in love with the findings of these, research papers. It's not to say that it's not interesting and it's not fun to stay abreast of that sort of thing, but
For sure.
You got to kind of put it in the position that it serves, and not elevate it to the point where it's like, well, this is the only approach that I'm ever going to take. I'll give you another one that's kind of fun. You hear it on a lot of the modern podcasts now, modern meaning like the last year or two, where, hey, surprise, Pat, it's coming out that like mixed mode, high intensity workouts are really good for people. Particularly, they're good for the brain. Yeah, they're really good for like all of the different energy systems of the body. And they're really great for like promoting longevity in people as they, make their way through life.
I might give it a try.
I wouldn't have believed it unless I had heard that thing, you know what I mean? But it's being touted as this new breaking research. And you look at people that have been engaged in this kind of movement for decades now, and you're like, okay, cool story. You guys are 20 years late. I'm glad you're verifying it at this point, but it's just kind of a funny phenomena.
It's got to have a paper, man. It's got to have a paper attached to it, or it's not real. I think I'm looking at my little notes right here. Hit that, you hit that. I think those are my major points on that
I'll wrap with this. I'll just say that, I think it's totally inevitable for most people that they're going to find a pet thing that they like, and there's nothing wrong with that. And maybe
100%, man.
Maybe that thing is I like going a little heavier because that's what I find challenging, and that's what I like to do. I like to be the 70-pound dumbbell guy. Hey, fine, man. More power to you. Go nuts. However, you just got to not get so enamored with that you lose sight of the bigger picture if GPP is your goal. And through that, you got to step outside of that box once in a while. And as long as you've given yourself the freedom to, hey, once in a while, I'm going to take those dumbbells down to 35s and I'm just going to let it rip. Hey, no harm, no foul. Be the 70-pound dumbbell guy most of the time, but just don't lose sight of the fact that once in a while, you got to shift gears.
Yep. And if you did all your stuff, if you bumped up all the loadings 10 to 20% on every workout that your buddies did, would you be a beast? Well, if you're still doing deads and cleans and thrusts, you'll still be a beast. Will, in my opinion, you'll be as optimally well-rounded as possible? Then I would say probably not. And it's okay. And like you said, if for a while you want to dabble, you just want to do what the heck you want to do. It's all good, most of us aren't androids that these little fun deviations or breaks or exits off the highway every now and then that last a week or a month or a year, still keep you in the fitness culture, still keep you in the game, still keep you going in the gym. It's all good. You're winning. There's somebody in my community right now that's in a rough patch, got a very demanding, newborn, sleeps, and he's just feeling bad. He's like, what should I do? He's like, I'm still going to work out, but what should I, motivation is low. And it's honestly, cherry pick for as long as you want to. I don't care.
Do the stuff you love.
Do
Yep.
the stuff that you love and
Yeah.
don't even worry about anything else,
Yep.
because it's hard enough to walk in and do that for as long as you need to till you come out of this, this era, and you pop back out. But it keeps you in the physical culture, keeps you
Yeah.
doing functional movement.
Yeah.
So you love DT, do it every Monday. I mean,
Yeah,
you
totally.
think you're not going to be shortchanged. Like it's all good. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, man. I think I'm there with it as well.
So I think we can agree that, yep, that for most people, if your goal is truly overall fitness, then just simply going heavier all the time is not going to be the solution for most people, most circumstances, most of the time. And that severance is profoundly hard to follow. And, and of course, everybody, we appreciate you. Keep the questions coming. Find this particular show on the BTWB YouTube channel. Post your thoughts on this topic. Do you have a question for an upcoming show? We'd love to hear that as well. If you want to do that on a different medium, you can go to Instagram, go to Varied Not Random, post under any of the items there, just a public comment, and we'll see it if you've got a question or a topic. If you want to be more anonymous, send a direct message to the Varied Not Random Instagram account, and we'll get those as well. So for Adrian Bosman, I'm Pat Sherwood, and we will see you next time.